Amazing. Our exclusive World's Richest Summit turns to knowing what the consumer wants. Our next billionaire guest, Jerry Jacobs, Chairman and CEO of Delaware North Companies. It's a concessions giant for major ballparks around the country, 20 major global airports, tourist attractions like Kennedy Space Center. I've had some of your fries, Jerry. Also, the Tenaya Lodge near Yosemite. And hot springs and spa in British Columbia. In the sports world, Jerry's owner of the Boston Bruins. Finally, Jacobs owns a piece of NESN, and that is the New England Sports Network, with his friend John Henry, owner of the Boston Red Sox. He's also serving his third term on the U.S. Department of Commerce Travel and Tourism Advisory Board. Good morning,
Good morning, Joe. It's good to speak to you. I've spent a lot of mornings with you on the treadmill or on the elliptical or whatever I was on.
That's great. That's great to hear. Cincinnati Royals, Jerry?
Oh, golly, that goes way back in time.
Was the Big O on the team when you owned it?
Yeah, Big O. We had Archibald. We had, I'm trying to think who else.
Cousy was coach, right?
Right. We got Bob back to coach. I saw him about a year ago. He's still going.
That's amazing. That's great. It brings me back. Your father started selling popcorn at a stand in 1915.
My dad and his two brothers started back in 1915, and my dad was the only one they could afford to send to college, and he went, and then he found out that he could make more selling advertising at the ballparks than he could, than the president of the university was making at the time, so he quit and he went to work.
That's amazing. And now you're everywhere. Let me ask you, Derek, is it inelastic? I mean, is it recession-proof to have a business in stadiums and tourist attractions, or are you seeing some weakness?
You can't really generalize, because what we see in sports is a very strong economy. The National Hockey League is coming off of its best year, best attendance, best gross income, in what would look like a down economy. And baseball is being predicted to be extremely strong this year. I'd have to say the concessions have been as predicted, and they're doing reasonably well throughout the country. But it's very early in their season, as you know. And
early in maybe the consumer downturn, we might be a little bit early. In any part, I mean, you've got 40,000 employees, right? I mean, you're all over the place as far as a private company. Anywhere where you're seeing weakness in the economy, or where the inflation, the input costs are hurting your business? Well, obviously, we're feeling pressure from our commodity pricing. The cost of goods, dairy up 20-some-odd%, wheat up over 100%. What we've been fortunate over time is to get contracted out early and try and get those commitments early on, so our pricing is stable. Usually, in a ballpark environment, you have to put your pricing at the beginning of the year, and you don't have an opportunity to change it. Where I am seeing some softness is the travel time, and this is in our gaming operations at racetracks and things like that, where we have Racino-type operations. People are willing to drive a short distance, but if you're quite a distance from your population, you're going to have downturns. God, you're like a proxy for the entire. I didn't even think about that. You're a proxy for the entire economy. You're an avid horseman too. Let me ask you about some of the stuff you said. What are these? This is off topic. What's a dipping dot? This is the ice cream of the future. You sold.
I like those things.
1.4. Huh?
Dippin' Dots?
You don't know those?
What are those, Jerry?
They're ice cream.
There's
another way of doing it.
They're like
little bitty dots, and you eat them, and they melt in your mouth.
Yeah.
Like little bonbons?
Teeny,
But it's
tiny.
here today.
Space museums.
These are some of the things, this many things, 11.5 million hot dogs, not from that one guy, that Japanese guy.
Just the one fellow, yeah.
Yeah. 2.9 million gallons. What, is that cheese on those nachos, Jerry? Is that really cheese?
You know, I'm not in the gym. I don't eat nachos and then go to the gym. But but it is cheese, and if you like it, we can give it to you for a price.
It is cheese, all right.
Jerry, as somebody who is in so many different ballparks, there's been an issue for years where people worry about the average ticket price, really pricing out the average American family, that it's just too expensive to take people. And I realize you don't set the prices for the tickets, but do you, as somebody who's operating the concessions and all these things, worry about the price for tickets at ballparks across America?
You know, it's not just baseball, Becky. It also involves hockey and other sports. Every time you have a price increase, you're going to start closing out a section of the population. And you've got to really think twice before you do it, because you've got to know that they can well afford it. We're seeing great. Look at the prices that the Yankees will be getting next year.
Yeah.
And that's concerning to me going out in the future. And hopefully they're successful at it. But I really question it. I know we're very sensitive to it in Boston on our product there.
Is it fair to say, Mr. Jacobs, you've been generous in terms of political donations and trying to spread the wealth between parties?
Yes.
John?
Carl, I understand where you're coming from, and yes, as best I can do for you.
Talk about how are you placing your bets as to how the election might turn out? Who have you supported?
Just about everyone that I can think of. No, I look for people that views are something that I agree with and direction I agree with, and I support them. I have supported my senator here in the state of New York, and I usually I try and support people who I agree with.
Yeah. That said, you think the whole debate over the gas tax or the gas tax holiday is pandering, is political pandering, yes?
In my opinion, it is. I make an observation that the gas tax usually goes to support our highways and our infrastructure that needs rebuilding. I think we create more jobs with that tax than any other.
Yeah, I think it just says a lot that, you could argue that to the degree there is a benefit to consumers, that would help your business. But I guess whatever benefit that might be, you think is just not worth the costs.
I think the benefit to the consumers is going to be by creating the jobs that tax creates, more so than what it costs the individual.
Jerry, in terms of what we're seeing in ballparks, I'm looking at the notes. I'm not really sure I understand them. Do you think it pays to aim for the private box luxury guys, or does not pay? It's just not really effective here. Is that your target group, or is it the 60,000 that are in the normal seats?
The 60,000 are very, very important to us, and are obviously our primary customer. But our clients have sold boxes at high prices to a lot of people, and entertaining in those areas is very important. I think you really have to cater to those people because they're important not only to me as a concessionaire, but they're equally important to the client. Those are their advertisers, and those are the people that they're reaching out to. And we have to service them, and it's important that we do a good job.
You talked about hockey briefly. I remember the deal NBC signed. I don't think NBC had to necessarily pay anything to televise the game. They sort of took a chance on it, and you've stuck with it as well. At this point, the turnaround is complete, you would say, and you're celebrating?
No, it's still in process, but it has been successful, and it's becoming more successful and each year that we've been in this contract going forward. I think it's good to get our product out there. It's more important that we get our product out to as many people as we can than in the individual financial advantage it is to us. With our regional sport networks and things like that, we're doing very well throughout the sport, but this gets us a national imprint that is really important to us.
Doing what we do for a living, Jerry, we spend a lot of time worrying about the future of television. Sports and real-time cable news, I guess, you could argue there is obviously a future, but talk about the future of the network model. You think it's in trouble?
Your networks?
On the television side, broadcast networks?
It's finding its place. It's got a different place than it had earlier. The regional sports network are taking over an awful lot of that avid fan base. With the new technologies, the emerging technologies, we're getting our information to our customers in hundreds of different ways than we never even thought of before. I mean, when I can pick up my telephone and get scores on that, or I can watch it on a BlackBerry, these are different ways of communicating. I don't think it's in trouble, so to speak, but it's just finding a new dimensions.
And last question, Jerry, you're an avid horseman, big equestrian center that you created. A lot of these horses, I guess, I found out have all come from the lineage of back in the 1950s. They're inbred. We've seen a couple of things happen lately. There's been some criticism of what happened.
8 Bells.
With 8 Bells and Barbaro and others. Is there problems in thoroughbred racing at this point, Jerry, in terms of the bloodlines being too inbred?
No, I don't think it's that. You're taking babies, you're taking 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds, and you're running them hard, and they're very competitive, and they haven't developed. They haven't had a chance to develop. You take, for instance, performance horses that I'm involved with, like jumpers and hunters. They don't even start to do the things that these young horses are doing. So as long as we keep pushing young horses the way we are, you're going to have these tragedies. That Barbara was a wonderful horse, and that 8 Bells would have been the most valuable mare in the country if she had survived. But they ran hard and they got hurt and they broke down. We see a lot of that. But young horses always have this problem.
Well, we appreciate you coming on today. Hope to have you back again as well, Mr. Jacobs. Great to see you. You're welcome.